We're talking today with Jim Derezinski. He's a current county commissioner. He's running for re-election. Jim, glad you could be here today. Tell us a little bit about your background and how long have you been county commissioner, why you chose to be county commissioner, and why you want to get re-elected again.
Well, my background, I got involved in politics. I'm going back a little bit. About 35 years ago, I lived on a small lake. I wanted to get sewers around, and the only way to get that done was to jump into the board there. I ran for clerk. 8 years later, we had sewers around Wolf Lake, and I learned then that the only way you're going to get anything done is get involved. After that was accomplished, then we built a library town hall out there. I'm very proud of that. We built that with savings, never went to the voters for any millage, with grants and savings. I was able to put that together so we didn't have to borrow any money. We didn't have to go to the people. And it's done. We've got a beautiful library out in Eggleston. I kind of gave that up. I was a teacher during my time as township clerk, and I think I was there for about 15 years. I gave that up when I became business manager for Oakridge Public Schools. They hired me with a specific direction to, we need to build a new high school. And I started putting that together. It took about 5 years. That course was a millage. I was the, basically we became our own contractors, saved over $1 million by doing all the disciplines ourselves. I retired from Oakridge, where I actually started as a custodian. After my time in the service, I thought, you know, I'm going back there, but I'm going back as a teacher. And ended up retiring as their business manager. I had over 30 years in. Very active in the community all my life, and I always felt the east end of Muskegon County was kind of slighted a little bit with the wastewater system absorbing 11,000 acres. Of which much of that was in Eggleston Township, and it wasn't being promoted. And I ran for that board. You know, this community is stifled by, hey, we don't have water, we have the sewers, but all this land, which has great potential, to me the wastewater system is a gold mine waiting to be dug. And looked at lots of options, and I've been an advocate of the windmills there for the last 4 or 5 years. I'm a big advocate of a jail out there. Our jail doesn't help people. If we can be a teacher, you know, we can't offer GED courses, we can't offer anything in drug rehabilitation, alcohol, and those are the things that are hurting people. The average reading age in there, but our jail is so overcrowded. You know, if we can stop the recidivism by 5%, that's huge. You know, and hopefully better. And I've been on every committee to start the pay it back program, get people out of there, our jail diversion programs, which are really taken off. I'm working right now on a veterans court, and I've been chairman of the board. I have a little habit of making, I say what's on my mind. And my own party has spent money against, not my own party, but Labor, who is, you know, a big Democrat. They'll spend money for my opponents. But I'm going to say what's on my mind. I don't intentionally want to tick anybody off, but if it's got to be done, got to be said, I'm not afraid to say it. And I've been very fortunate. I have kind of a strong base in Eggleston. I do want to be around as two things I think will happen in the next 2 to 3 years. One is the windmills will be turned on, and that jail is going to be restructured. Things that I've worked on for a long time. I'm 65. This is a great way to keep my mind active and do some community service. My father died when I was 2. My mother had 8 kids when I was pregnant. And out in that little community, we were raised by the community. And I've always wanted to do what I can to, pay it back. Thank them. The VFW out there is the Derezinski post after my father, who was a surgeon in World War II. And we were never without a Christmas after my dad died, And you remember that. And I've always felt, well, I'm going to do something good out here. You're either part of the problem or part of the solution. And I've been very fortunate as a county commissioner, and actually I was going to run for township clerk. My wife said, "The heck you are." You wouldn't be involved in bike time, you wouldn't be involved in power tour. Those are things that were started while I was chairman of the board, until I stepped on so many feet that my own party wouldn't send me there, and it's just the way I am. So I want to see these while I've got the health and the mind. I want to do what I can, and I want to keep myself out there as long as I think I'm doing some good.
Tell us more about the jail. You said you've been working on that for a while. That's a contentious issue. What is the, do we need a brand new jail? Can we remodel the one we have? What's the best way to go about doing that?
Boy, I wish I knew the best way. Number one is, I'll just give you the way I think it's going to go down, which a brand new facility would be way too expensive, number one. Number two, we'd have to locate it somewhere else, so the transportation back and forth. I do not want to go to the voters for a millage election. That's the challenge. To do this facility. A, you're not going to win. B, you can't find a poster child like you can if you're going for a school millage. It's kind of difficult, but it does serve a public safety issue. It grinds me to no end that the United States has the largest incarceration in the world, and that bothers me. And why is that? What can we do for these people to keep them from coming back? That's primary. And went to actually went to Washington when I was chairman of the board, and got a grant from the federal government, a little over $400,000 time we got it through the state, to create this diversion program and do what it takes. And that's been, that to me is number one. If this person needs this type of help, let's assess these people, find out what their problem is, see what we can do to help them instead of punishing them. And that's been, to me, quite successful. Coming back to your question, and I don't mean to skirt around it, I think the people whom are what we call straddle cell, whom are waiting, are not convicted, okay? They're waiting for trial. They need to be in a facility right there, so they don't have to be transported back and forth. Okay, once they are sentenced, you get your 90 days or you get your 2 years, okay? I think that then could go to another, I see a revamped facility. I've been to Jackson, I've been through about 10 facilities to see how they do it. And recently down in oh, south of here. M40, what's on the end of M40?
South Haven?
No.
Ellicott County.
Ellicott. I just went to Ellicott County, and what they did is they found an ideal building. They again kept their inmates that are in transition, the straddle cell people waiting to go to the state prison or waiting for trial, and kept them in this facility. And I see us continuing to use it. Once you're sentenced, they have a different facility. And that facility was ideal for me because part of it was set up for those who had work release, which I'm big on. Part of it had the trustee part of it. And there's some people whom you can't, just need a little more supervision, if I could use that. I see in jail this. There's people I'm afraid of, and there's people I'm mad at. Okay? The people I'm afraid of, I want them. People who've made a mistake and I'm mad at, not I, but collectively as society. Let's see if we can change an attitude. And again, I said it before, 5%, 10%. I don't want to lock up more people, but I want the people I'm mad at not to be in a revolving door because we don't have room. You know, and that's what happens. The police are frustrated. We'll take you down there. I know I'm going to be out in 5 weeks, 6 weeks. Well, you want to go on a tether? Heck no. I'll be on a tether for 90 days. I'll just wait it out and get an early release. The judges are frustrated with that. The police are frustrated. And I am, you know. And we need to change that. But everybody says, oh, we're going to lock up more people. That is not our goal. Have you been through that, Eric? Have you been through that jail?
I went through the jail, yeah.
Yeah. It's nasty. I'm afraid for our employees. You know, we had that disease run through it. How many deaths have we had in that jail?
Well, doesn't that go to management, though? If the jail's being managed effectively and the county's putting money into it, it's no different than your house to keep it clean and repaint the inside when you need to. If you have to update the heating, ventilating, you go ahead and do it.
I think you need to go take a look at it. Just how much money do you want to pour into a dead horse? I'm sorry, it's beyond. You know it's well over 50 years old. It was built for 200. We have 400.
But that was after the expansion of the
well,
basement,
that expansion was a joke. It was $1 million. I mean, that when there's that lawsuit, that little thing increased very little what we could do to help the prisoners. Okay, it was $1 million over budget because of the asbestos in that building, which is huge. You're already in I'd say a 60-year-old building, which wasn't designed for that purpose. You know, there was a jail there for 200, but the philosophies, this floor, that floor, the women, you know, and that. The other problem is, you know, back when it was built, women were a couple percent, 2, 3, 4% of the population of the jail. Not today. That's a whole different animal. Eric, you saw the women's cells.
Yeah.
You know, I think you did. It breeds more contempt than anything else.
Tell me how we do all this without a tax increase.
Well, I kind of feel the county can afford anything it wants. Just can't afford everything it wants. And you do that by setting priorities. Instead of planning a budget, you budget a plan. Here's our plan. This is what we've got to do. And that plan is how you develop your budget. By budgeting a plan. We don't have a plan. I'm really liking this administrator. We had to set some goals, and we're going to have to build our budget around those goals. Okay, and how do we pay for that? I keep, every time we find one-time money or have a little budget surplus, it's been going into account. We already got just about $8 million put away. That's just how we built that library town hall in Eggleston. You start stocking it away. Then you find other sources possibly of revenues, and these straddle cell people can be a source. I don't see bringing more prisoners here as what I want to do, but we've got to find a way to pay for this. The state prison system is letting people out early. As soon as they got a parole violation, guess where they sit?
County jail.
County jail.
Right.
Okay, we can make the state pay for that. Then they'll sit here and they'll go through that whole process again. It costs everybody more money. Is that a revenue source I want to tap? I don't know at this point in time, but I'll tell you, I'm going to take a look at it. Then we have these windmills I talked about, okay? There's going to be, and I've been talking, I want to know how much property tax increase is that going to make to the county of Muskegon? Not only to Oakridge schools and Eggleston Township, and Urbana schools and Moreland Township. How much revenue will the property tax, because that property is going to go back on the tax rolls, either in real property or personal property. I want that isolated off. That's to pay this debt back. Because we're going to have to borrow money to do this, I think. I can't see any other way. But let's find a source of revenue to pay that off. The casino, there's what they call the PILT, payment in lieu of taxes, PILT money. Now that didn't happen. I'm still an advocate. I don't gamble. When I see these schools running their senior citizens up to Mount Pleasant on a bus, and I see them sending them up to Little River Band, and I know for sure 30% of the revenue that can be traced at least Little River is coming right out of Muskegon and Ottawa counties. Am I a gambler? No. But it's leaving here, going up there, and I've been to both those communities to see how that works. And there's another potential. I really feel it's going to happen. When? I don't know. It took Gun Lake, 9 years, something like that. But that too, okay, this needs to be isolated off to pay that debt. Because the county's going to have to cut somewhere or change something. If this is the plan, everything else is going to work around that plan.
How many beds do you think this new jail should have? Are we good with 400? Should it be 450?
I think it should be about 460. Okay, just, I hate to build something that just meets our needs right now with no future. And I don't want to build anything that 8 years down the road you're going to be replanning. That structure should be in such a fashion that I forget what they're called. They're almost pre-built.
Prefabricated?
Yeah, that's what they had down there. Okay, things change. Boom, boom, boom. I don't know what the future brings, but I know our population is growing, and it's and hopefully the economy improves and our population will go down. But the conditions in that building, and Eric, you can agree with me or disagree with me, are deplorable. And the cost of fixing that, there's a point where you're throwing good money after bad.
Well, if you have a structure, I'm going to take the building we're sitting in right now. It's a very, very old building, but the structure is sound. And as long as the structure to a building, to a structure is sound, doesn't it make more sense to go ahead and rehab it rather than just build something, you're essentially talking about taking an existing building that's vacant right now and refurbishing it into a jail. When we already have a jail, we've already got the building, but it needs some help. It's been neglected, and I think that's the one thing on a lot of people's minds is that this jail has been neglected for a number of years, and all of a sudden it's like, well, wait a minute, the county wants to put up another jail. What's to say that they're going to do the same thing with that one and neglect that one so it becomes in bad shape?
Well, I guess I don't agree with the word neglected, okay? It's been maintained. There's a minimum standard, and I gotta say it's close to that. Once you get into rehabbing a building, and that building was built with the 1950 codes, now you're bringing the whole thing back up to codes. Codes have changed dramatically. You have the Section 8 where as long as it's safe, you can stick with those codes. I think it's called Section 8 of Boca Code, okay, if I can recall that. But once you go in and start remodeling, you're bringing every piece of that up to code. That's where the cost per square foot is driven over the cost of new. Now, what do I do with those 100 prisoners or 300 prisoners I've got to displace, okay, while I'm bringing this? We've had one time where we had to send, I don't forget, I think it was 150, 200 prisoners to other facilities. That cost is huge, you know. And if we, you know, because that's another, what happens there? These people still got to be housed. And so that again floats that cost way up. We get finished with revamping that, we still have no more room.
We get a new, this jail proposal, should it be put before the voters? This is a major expenditure the county's going to go ahead and possibly undertake. Should the voters have a right to say yes or no?
If we're, I think the voters absolutely have to be informed as to what we're doing. Does it require a vote of the people? Depends upon how we do it. We're not to that point yet. We're still looking at structures that may work. Yes, we're going to have to make some cuts here and there. Unfortunately, let's say we can find the sources to do it by budgeting a plan without borrowing money, or excuse me, without having to go to the vote of the people. You don't have to go if you're not borrowing less than 15% of your taxable value. There's a way to do that, okay, and it's standard. Everybody does it, okay. Unfortunately, with the casino, I found that out. There's no way you can put an advisory vote on the ballot. You can't do it. When that became the issue, I said, well, let's put it out to the public, you know. I don't know if you were involved then. Well, you know, it was a big issue. I was trying to bring this development in. And of course, there's always going to be a group against everything. And to appease it, well, we got an election coming up in November. We'll see what the people in the county feel, yes or no. Should we pursue it? Well, you can't put an advisory vote.
Well, you're aware that about, I'm going to say a dozen years ago or so, there was a ballot proposal on specifically for a new jail, and it was defeated. It was the idea where we would borrow, or we would...
Oh, that was under Sheriff...
Carter.
Carter, yeah.
Right.
And it was soundly defeated.
Right.
But then Sheriff Carter sued the County Board of Commissioners, and that's when we had to move on. There was a settlement to the lawsuit. The county spent literally millions of dollars and accomplish very little.
Right. That's usually the case when one branch of government is fighting the other one.
Yeah, and it was total waste of everybody's time and money.
Right.
I do like what I don't know this gentleman, I'm sorry.
I'm Roger Nye. Roger Nye.
Oh, Roger Nye. I know that name. I've seen you before. I'm sorry. I'm deaf in this ear, so that's why I look at people I talk to. You know, when governments sue governments, it just turns my stomach. It's your tax dollars and mine being thrown away. You know?
Well, let's another topic that is a point of contention, and this is something that recently happened. It hasn't been simmering around on the burner for quite a number of years. Several weeks ago, the county board had a meeting regarding an information session about fracking, and that's one of essentially the idea is that the county board is considering leasing the mineral rights to a group. They can come in, do some oil exploration. The mineral rights would be at the wastewater system, and one of the ways that they would go ahead and extricate the natural gas or whatever they find is there, they could quite possibly use a process called fracking, where it fractures the ground way below the earth. And what can happen as a result of that is that people's groundwater gets contaminated to where it's not drinkable anymore.
And that's in my backyard.
Exactly. So
okay.
What's the...
Well, I think there's a misconception here, okay? There has been inquiries over the last 20 years about the mineral rights out there a number of times. When I was business manager at Oakridge, that issue came up because of schools, and I was the clerk of Eggleston Township. That same issue came up, the mineral rights. And it pops up now and then. And I'm going to say myself and John Snyder said, when that inquiry came in again, we better understand some things. And we weren't considering fracking. We were considering what is fracking. Let's get educated on it before we even look at any of these proposals. And that got, I think, really blown out of proportion. I think we were doing due diligence there. The inquiry's been in on the mineral rights. Well, before we even look at the proposal, let's find out the effects of what could happen. And we want, and every state deals with it differently. How does the state of Michigan deal with it? And having said that, and there's other proposals out there that are pieces of that, if we were to let that we need to understand. We're the ones letting the contract. Yeah, you can have this contract. We don't want you doing that. But before we know and understand that, or even consider letting those things go, let's see how much we can learn about the potentials of those things. And if you were at that meeting, you were at that meeting, that's all it was. Is what is it? Where does the state stand on it? And what is the history of it in the state of Michigan? And all of a sudden, because we had trying to educate ourselves, which I think, I said it before, is due diligence. It gets, oh, these rights are gone and this is what's going to happen. No, they're not. This proposal, this is a repeat, you know. But the technology's changed, and I want to know, and I said it in the paper, I'm very much more educated. Now, if I go to the state and find that on my own, you know, which sometimes we'll go to conferences and they'll do, well, these two commissioners hear it, these two didn't hear it, you know. And our whole goal was, let's all hear the same thing at the same time. And that bothers me a little bit when, you know, you and I could go to the same class, or hear the same thing, see the same accident, and have a totally different perspective. And that's what we were trying to avoid. Instead of a group of us going down there, No, we need to do it as an entire board. And that way, the misconceptions are, or the, not misconceptions, that's too strong of a word, or different interpretations are eliminated. That was the whole goal. But it got blown out into a big, it's an election year, you know, and everybody's looking for a way to slap the standing people down. You know, you did this wrong, you did that wrong. Well, you know, I'm not perfect, but okay, did I answer your question?
Exactly. So basically, if the purpose of the meeting was to fill the commission in on what is fracking, how would they extricate anything they're going to extricate from the wastewater, and obviously if there's something that would be unsafe, put somebody's groundwater at risk, particularly when it's in your district.
Yeah, we have excellent groundwater.
And you want to keep it that way.
Yeah, we don't, I'm blessed with that water. But that was the purpose, and it was Commissioner Snyder and I that, whoa, let's find out. We want to air it, you know. You're bringing us, we had this inquiry, and there's other processes that we want to know about. And the other thing that could happen there is, you know, this board's going to change dramatically. You know, I'm a long-standing, one of the longest-standing commissioners, and if we don't do it, will the next board do that due diligence?
The public defender system in Muskegon County, you're aware that there's a lawsuit that's pending between three or four criminal defendants, and it's pending against Muskegon County, Calhoun County, and Genesee County. Is the public defender system in Muskegon County broke? And if so, how bad is it? Does that contribute to the jail overcrowding problem?
Well, the public defenders really don't work hard to get people that they're assigned to off a charge. They are there for protecting their rights, to make sure their rights are not violated. In that aspect, no, I don't think that they're adding to that. I do think our public defender system needs, as it did when I was chairman, those issues came up, we revamped it dramatically. We went to the judges, okay, what can we do to do a better job of it and at the same time not drive our costs? And with their recommendations, let's get public defenders that go into each of the courts so they all know how they operate, and we can better utilize their time, the judge's time. There isn't this postponement, that postponement, and that piece of it was successful. But anytime you tweak something, there's going to be a spin-off that needs to be adjusted. So I thought we made some strides at that point. That lawsuit still stems from an older system. That lawsuit, you mentioned 3, I think there's about better than half the counties that were using that system where that lawsuit originated from. And we did change. We still need to improve it, no doubt, but I don't think it is a factor. If I'm answering your question, I don't like dancing around questions. I get to the point slowly is all, okay? That it's adding to the amount of prisoners in the jail.
Well, do you think that if more money was put into it, and that's really what it comes down to, is resources, more money, and that the public defender was more on an equal level with the prosecutor's office, that you would end up with fewer people that wind up in jail, and on that basis it's like, okay, putting aside the fact that we may or may not need a new building, we don't need any more bed space. Right around 400, we can live with that number as long as there's parity between the prosecutor and the public defender, so the people ending up there are who really should be there, and not somebody that, I'm thinking of an incident, this actually happened in Muskegon County, where the public defender did not do his job, and there was somebody that languished for 8 months in the county jail that could have been let go after about 8 days, never to return. So if there's one of those that surfaced that we know about, and there's a report on that I was reading, there's got to be more of them here and there that have fallen through the cracks. Doesn't that in and of itself, when a criminal defendant comes before a judge, he knows he can't afford a lawyer, he's going to wind up with a public defender, isn't the whole thing to him just dispiriting, to where he's going to throw up his hands and say, what's the use of trying to get rehabilitated? I'm not even going to get a good lawyer here. I'm going to get railroaded anyway. Just throw my hands up, I'll do my time. They're not even making an effort to get me a good lawyer. They're not going to go ahead and help me anyway. Why bother? I'll just go sit in the cell for 6 months.
Well, I don't know of that issue, and I think I would be well aware of it. I'm not saying it didn't happen. I just say I'm not aware of that. Okay? And I got to tell you, during these election years, a lot of things get blown out of proportion that if you really find out the facts, and it happens to all of us incumbents, everything kind of gets exasperated, is that the right word? You know? But I do want to answer one question, okay? Should they be on parity? I don't know if just throwing more money at that is the answer. And I think, Eric, you were at the meeting as I brought it up to the administrator. Are we addressing that? You know, are we addressing, we don't do it the way we did it when we had the lawsuit. We've changed, and we know we need to tweak that change. And I'm assured, and I kind of know from behind the scenes, things are happening. But there are options, and you got to look at best practices. And you do that by looking how, other counties are doing it. You know, I don't like to reinvent the wheel, but who's having a lot of success? And how are they doing it? And you can't do that overnight. You know, again, you have to, and I've had this conversation, and you were at the meetings, and I brought this up at least twice. I don't like the system we have. I don't think just throwing more money this way isn't going to cost us more money over here, you know, at the prosecutor's level. I think the prosecutor has the bigger burden thrown upon them than the public defenders. Prosecutors got to do it beyond a reasonable doubt. Public defender, let's make sure their rights aren't violated. Let's see if we can create reasonable doubt. And if you see what I'm saying.
Exactly.
And I feel that, you know, I won't go to the prosecutor's office, so don't ask me about my feelings, okay? Okay?
Let's go to Brookhaven.
Oh, sure.
Tell me what's the matter with Brookhaven? What's not working there? What happened with, there was some sort of meeting that was supposedly closed when it should have been open? What's the crux of the problem with Brookhaven? What do we need to do to improve there?
Well, Brookhaven, I'd like to just, I'll answer your question, okay? I'm not going to dance around, but I'd like to come from the premise in which I give my answer, okay? I see health care and senior citizens' home as a entrepreneur's job, okay? Government, I don't think, should be doing those things that the entrepreneur can do better. Okay, I mean, we can't. We're slow acting by design. You know, I mean, the government doesn't want to move fast. I mean, whoever wrote the Constitution, make sure you don't overreact, and they still seem to do it sometimes. But Brookhaven does this, okay? Brookhaven offers Medicaid, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong. I'm exhausted.
It's Medicaid.
Hmm?
It is Medicaid.
Okay. They can offer some Medicaid care that's a lot better than people who, I don't want to use the indigent word, please don't use that, it's too strong of a word, but you know what I'm trying to say. They can't afford anything better. We do a great job with it, but we're doing a great job with a big tax to the general fund. Now, is there a way to maybe privatize, again, with these Medicaid patients are part of the mix, you know, to make sure those people are covered, you know? Can we continue to tap the general fund for that? I don't know. But we better, and I was searching when I was chairman of the board, I was searching for that option. We had people that were looking at it, and our top of the list was, how are we going to continue to serve the Medicaid? And we had some proposals to look at. All of a sudden, our population went up a little bit, and the problem kind of went away. The board was not willing to bite the bullet. That's too strong of a word. I hate it when you run every 2 years, and as a controversial issue comes up near election time, all of a sudden it fades.
Right after the election's over, it fades.
No, right before. Let's not have this as an issue, you know, because election's coming up. That ticks me off. Terrible. You know, it doesn't make me popular to be pushing this jail right before the election.
Right, exactly.
You know, but hey, that's what I am. You know, that's what I'm going to do. And I think the people need to know that.
Bus service. Can we get bus service out to Whitehall, Montague, Twin Lake, Holton, and Ravenna? Will that work?
How about Eggleston? What's wrong with Eggleston?
Well, you can go through Eggleston to get to Ravenna.
I think it's worth a look. I know when I was clerk of the township, we did bring bus service out to Eggleston through the system that was there at that time. It was, and the board actually out there, and I was a big proponent of it, bringing it out. Having had the Wolf Lake Transit Authority that did very well out there for many years, and I'm extremely familiar with that, it was an economic disaster. Okay, when we were trying to do it on our own as a little community. But there are federal grants for rural, as gas back then when we did it was 75 cents a gallon, and jobs were plentiful. Okay, I mean, you got to put things in perspective. Exactly. Those times are changing. I still think it's going to be extremely costly, but and we get those federal dollars to do this. It's still your tax dollars.
Right.
I mean, that's what we look at. Well, somebody else is paying for it because it's coming from the federal government. It's coming from the state. Well, where do they get their money but from me and you?
Right.
And I would love to see it come out there to Eggleston and Ravenna and Whitehall, Montague. I'm just giving you a hassle, but you just happen to eliminate my district. And I ain't gonna let that happen. But you guys got me back in a corner here.
Well, so. I figure if you shoot it out Apple Avenue, you're gonna have to go through Eggleston to get there.
I know that. I'm very well aware of that. And I've already looked at, and I don't even want to say it, but there were just some crude drawings of how it might go. You know, you almost can't today put your thoughts down on paper where it can't be, what's the word, FOIA'd.
Right, exactly.
You know, I mean, I've always got things rolling in my mind, which, you know, half of them aren't good, but I'm trying to refine them, you know.
That's fair enough.
And that's what I do. You go back to the fracking issue. That's what you do if you're doing your job.
That's right.
All right, now I have a bunch of questions, so you can turn around.
I thought my time's up.
Just about. Most of them are easy questions for you.
Okay, I'm sorry. Did I answer your
you're
questions?
fine.
All right. If I left and didn't answer your questions, I try to get to the point.
No, you did. You answered them very well.
First question is, what do you think about the current policy for bidding in the county?
I think the flaws in it are being exaggerated. And last night's meeting was a very good example of that. If you read that system that we have, it's not perfect, but it's a good one. We're getting a lot more people looking than we ever had before. The system, I forget the name of it right now. No.
Mitten, I think.
Yeah, Mitten. It is relatively new. But I pointed out yesterday, item number 3, right on the top of the page, allows you to put up your proposal and your reasons for, and I read the sentence to you. There is a way to do that. Unfortunately, it costs $80 or $90 for these bidders to get in there. I think for some of the smaller stuff, and you heard me talk about it the other day, we need to, because of the cumbersomeness of the mitten for little things, for some people who aren't that technologically advanced, or you know, I think of this place where it does my chainsaws and lawnmowers out there. They're excellent. But maybe for that particular staff, it's more of a burden for a $10,000 tractor, you know. And yeah, that is being revised. If you really wanted to work with the system, there is an avenue to do that, Eric. It's new. Anything new is going to have some, you know, some of these tweakings. And Eric, we're going after that.
Yeah.
Okay, and that's just.
Oh, the question was actually before yesterday's meeting. So
Okay.
It was. I mean,
You heard what I said.
Right, I know.
Yeah.
I just wanted to let you know I wasn't throwing it out just because of yesterday's meeting.
Okay.
It was more geared towards the fact that there's been. It looks like there's less people. More people are seeing it. Less people are bidding. And wanted to see your opinions on that.
Well, I want to exasperate, or can I expand that a little
please.
bit? No, I'm not going there.
Okay.
Okay? I thought about that. I'm not going there.
Okay. What is your view on transparency?
I think we have made huge advances in transparency. Let me tell you about Power Tour, how dedicated I was to, you know, we're a 501(c), but there's a lot of money changing hands here. And how are we going to handle this? Who's going to be the treasurer, and blah, blah, blah. And I said, you know, and I want everything run through the foundation. Okay, the foundation gives us great accounting. Every dime goes into the foundation. To complicate that, which I wanted to do, I want the county administrator to sign every check. So there's excellent paperwork. There's a second look at everything that went out and the expertise that we have on the county, you know. And I was not a fan of the laptops being given to us. Not given to us, but lent to us. But I gotta tell you, Eric, since I got it, and I got a shirt that says noclue.com. Okay? I made my living as a business manager, and I taught at the college, Lotus 1 and 2, But I always had a techie to show me how to do, this is what I want to do. I know the formulas, I know how to put them in, but make the darn thing work. Okay? But I wasn't. But I believe that tool has done wonders. When I send an email out, everybody's got it. Anybody can look at it. I'll say what I'm going to say. I'm thinking a little more carefully what I'm going to say, but I can't be misrepresented. You know, and I know who's opening it and who's not opening it. I go to a meeting and I don't ask as many questions because with that machine, I can refer to this document and that document. They used to send all me those packets in the mail. I heat my house with a big wood burner from all the stuff that they send me, you know. And then I do, but I think that has helped. I think if there's anything you want to know, it's there to be got. Okay, and I think it's a term that's being thrown out there as in another election year. Gimmick. I personally don't see, you talked about the meeting where Brookhaven was discussed. There was no decision made. I listened to it's not tape, but the minutes. When they reenacted that, who asked all the questions?